Hello everyone, and welcome to this episode of NAWG, a history podcast. Not Another White Guy is an episodic production focusing on women and people of color in history whose contributions to life as we know it have been overlooked or claimed by someone else. I dive into new topics and showcase a new historical figure bi-weekly. I invite you to like this video and subscribe to this channel to join me on this journey of discovery and learning. Welcome to the life and breakthrough inventions of Hedy Lamarr. Episode 1, Part 2. In the midst of all of this, the death of her father rattled her to her core. She needed to reignite her passion in film and escape. Now, there are a slew of fantastical stories varying in detail on how she escaped this golden prison, but my favorite reads like an adventurous Hollywood movie plot. It's said that Hedy was part of planning out an elaborate dinner party. She was in charge of hiring and selecting the support staff, the maids especially. Here, she takes very particular steps to choose a maid that looks similarly to herself. The night of the dinner, she gives the maid a cup of laced tea. When the maid ultimately falls into a drugged slumber, Hedy dons the maid's outfit and slips away into the night on her bike, finally free, eventually escaping to family friends in London. Here, in 1937, we find a certain Louis B. Mayer of the famous American brand MGM Studios. He is visiting Europe in hopes of scooping up acting and musical talent that are fleeing the growing violence of Nazi Germany. This was actually a very popular move on people who could make money off of talent that was fleeing the war. After being presented with an insultingly low offer for an acting contract, with the snarky condition that she keep her clothes on, Hedy initially refuses Mayer's offer, but she realizes almost immediately that she absolutely needs this contract. This is her fast track to movie stardom and to rocket her acting career to the next step. She books her voyage on the SS Normandy, the exact ship that Mayer is taking back to the United States. While on the ship, she dons the last of her jewels and her last designer dress. The following scene is one of the most iconic and retold tales in early Hollywood. As she grandly walks across the ballroom, all eyes are on her, her presence commanding the room to her beauty and elegance. By the time she approaches Mayer's table, he knows he must have her. Having finally agreed to a more handsome offer, Hedy lands in New York to rows of paparazzi. In 1937, she is now globally known as the most beautiful woman in the world. Her acting career ebbs and flows as the years pass. She gets her American screen debut in Algiers, alongside Charles Boyer. The introduction to her character was iconic to many, as the cinematography creates a sense of urgency, making the audience ask, "Who is this woman?" And when Hedy finally turns around to face the camera, the effect is immediate and shocking. Hollywood blew up with Hedy Lamarr fever. Actresses suddenly started darkening their hair, featuring a center part and donning makeup that greatly resembled Hedy. Film parts came and went, and eventually, Hedy finds herself run like a racehorse like the rest of the MGM actors. Pushed to the limits, she filmed 6 days a week. They were given medication to wake up and act, to stay perky and energetic. Then they were medicated to sleep. Constantly, they were artificially stimulated to be able to perform however MGM demanded. Fascinatingly enough, in her short hours of free time, she didn't spend them out on the town or at lavish parties. Hedy instead spent them on her favorite hobby, inventing. It's said that Hedy invented during any free time that she had. I'm talking at night during the week, on weekends, and even on set between filming sessions. She bonded with several inventing partners, the first of which being Howard Hughes. The inquisitive mind that her father fostered from a young age was always looking to learn and improve the world around her. The most famous story between her and Howard Hughes was when he was struggling with his blueprints for airplane design. He kept saying that he knew they could be made faster, but he couldn't find a design that was successful. Hedy has famously said, "I told him that the planes were too square, so I went and got a book on birds and a book on fish. I combined the shapes of the fastest birds and the fastest fish and gave him the design." Hughes was markedly impressed, and with her final product, has raved her inventive mind ever since. Hedy also fondly remembers developing a tablet that could rehydrate into a glass of cola. It failed in the final stages as the design didn't account for the different compositions of water in different geographical areas, resulting in irregularities in the cola. But nonetheless, she enjoyed her many inventions. She proudly said that inventions came naturally to her. Now, in 1940, the war was ramping up, and everyone could tell that it was only a matter of time before the US got involved. Hitler was taking over all of Western Europe and threatening to take Great Britain. Hedy didn't feel comfortable sitting in Hollywood making all of this money while the rest of the world was dealing with the war. She loved the United States and wanted to give it whatever she could to help better its chances in the war effort. At that time, Hitler's naval forces were seemingly impenetrable. His ships easily outmaneuvered British attacks. The British would launch their torpedo only for their signal to be jammed, losing their connection to the torpedo and rendering the attack next to useless. Hedy saw this problem and strove to fix it. Her solution? A remote-controlled torpedo, guided by a new, secret communications system. There is some disagreement on what inspired Hedy's design, but it's said that she received her inspiration from a recently launched product from the Philco radio company. If I can dial in the radio station here in this remote, and have the radio from across the room play the same station, then why can't we do the same with torpedoes? This theory seems quite likely, as the likeness of the Philco radio remote control dial is depicted in her inventing notebook. From here, Hedy explains to her current inventing partner, the musical composer George Antheil, her brilliant idea for a hidden communication system. Essentially, until this point, the nature of communication between a launching point and a torpedo is a radio connection riding on a single frequency. The connection tells the torpedo where to go, and the torpedo receives that information. However, here's where we run into a bit of trouble. Once enemies identify which frequency the connection is on, all they have to do is jam that one frequency, rendering the torpedo useless. Her solution to this she called frequency hopping. The concept is that instead of carrying out the entire connection on a single frequency, that both the controller and the torpedo start on the same frequency, and from there carry out the connection by jumping between frequencies at the same time and at the same rate. This way, if the enemy was able to identify a frequency in the signal, it would only be a single instant in the entire communication. And by that time that the enemy identified that one frequency, the torpedo and controller would already have moved forward in the sequence, rendering the jamming useless. Thank you for listening to Episode 1, Part 2, and continue on to Episode 3 to find out what happens next with Hedy Lamarr. Thank you. And if you like what you heard, don't forget to like and subscribe. All of our social media links are in the video description below. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. I'll be posting clues about who our next episodes will be on, and I'd love to hear about who you guys would like to learn about next in future episodes of NAWG.